Liberty Falls, a once peaceful and quiet town ruined by the Dark Ether. But the question is, how much of the safety of the town actually got ruined as well during the process? That's exactly what we're here to find out in today's episode of Safety Check. We're going to go through Liberty Falls and we're going to see exactly how safe Liberty Falls is. So with that in mind, welcome to Safety Check. Hello everybody, welcome back to Safety Check. We're in the good old beautiful town of Liberty Falls. Although with the amount of smoke going on right now, you wouldn't think it's very beautiful. It doesn't look like it's doing too well. But either way, we've got to see how safe it is here today. And we've got to rank it and see what we come up with. So let's do it, shall we? First thing I'm going to mention, of course we go through the low tier hazards first, is the amount of tripping hazards on the map. I mean, you can see myself walking past these cables here, which I could easily trip over straight away. And you've got things like fire hydrants that have broken off. You know, you could trip over something like that. Bins you could trip over. You got loads of rubbish just left everywhere as well, which you could trip over. And I've hardly explored through the rest of the map yet. And I'm already identifying a lot of tripping hazards. We've got more fire hydrants that have been knocked over. And then you got lampposts and motorbikes left on the floor and pallets. I mean, there's a fair few tripping hazards on this map. So tripping hazards is going to be our first risk of the map identified, and it is going to get an overall rating of 70 out of 100. The next one we're going to go for is hygiene. I've spotted a fair bit of blood around this map as I walk through a big pile of blood right here. As you can tell, there's a lot of blood causing a lot of issues around this map, which is never good. I mean, if this was my motel room, I'd be pretty disappointed, especially with burnt bodies in it. And that's without all the mentioned rubbish that I just mentioned for tripping hazards. That's not hygienic. And this is apparently where I'm meant to eat. Yeah, not great. So hygiene is definitely going to have to go on the list, and I think it's actually going to get a 60 out of 100. Okay, next up isn't a massive one, but it is still an issue nonetheless, and it's actually going to be shrapnel. Now, there's not loads of shrapnel on this map, but there is still enough to class it as a risk. Like here, for example, look at all this glass on the floor that I could cut myself on. Pretty sharp, not good. And the same goes for around some of these shops where the doors have been broken. I mean, I could definitely hurt myself on this glass. So shrapnel is going to be an issue, and it is going to get an overall rating of 80 out of 100. All right, so the next one I want to talk about is now a medium tier risk, because we've moved out of the low tier risk category, and it's going to be in relation to falling. As I'm showing you now, it is really easy just to climb up on top of the roofs, and then you could just, you know, like jump off here, fall, hurt yourself, break your legs, you know. And that's not the only area where I could fall off. You've got some smaller areas I could jump off, like right here. Not as bad, but still could be considered dangerous. And there's nothing really stopping me from jumping across here and, you know, just falling down here. Could also hurt. And then of course you got the spawn rooftop area, which you could fall off the side here or fall off down here. And you know, that's a very high drop. That could really hurt. And then of course you got this main roof that you could fall off. There's multiple sections you could fall off it from. You could fall off this section, you could fall off over here, and you could fall off these two zipline areas here if you really tried. So it is quite a high risk of falling, and for that reason I'm actually going to give it a 40 out of 100. Now, I did mention at the beginning of the video there was a lot of smoke and fire everywhere, and that's actually going to lead us to our next risk, which is actually high grade burns. Let's be honest, if this fire catches you, it's going to be doing some very, very serious damage to your skin. And the motel's really on fire as well, and that's just scratching the surface, because we've seen the fires around the map. They're not good. You know, more cars on fire, and all this debris here also on fire. Not good at all. So high grade burns is definitely a risk, and it is going to get a 50 out of 100. Now, next up on the list for a medium tier risk, we're going to go with vehicles, because there are lots of vehicles on this map, including military vehicles actually, you know. Not great to just leave them there, but we'll move on. But anyway, all these vehicles run the risk of exploding. I've done it a couple of times where I've shot an explosive and it's actually blown up these cars. And a perfect example of this, there you go. That's how easy it is to blow up these cars. And they are literally littered everywhere we go. There are so many vehicles on this map. Some of them are crashed. Some of them are blocking our paths off, like that lorry there. And like this tanker here, it is actually on fire. So yeah, vehicles are a pretty big risk, I'd say. So putting that into consideration, I am going to give it an overall rating of 40 out of 100. And then we're going to move on to our next medium tier risk, which is actually chemical hazards. Now, this petrol station has been left unattended for obvious reasons, and there are plenty of chemicals just lying around that you can normally buy on a day-to-day basis, you know, not a problem. But when they're just left on the floor like this, you know, they can become an issue. And that is obviously without mentioning that you have the petrol or diesel in this instance, tanks right here. If any fire catches those, that could be a massive issue. And you've got more types of fuel and chemical hazards all in the shops here. And also, you know, look at this. This tanker has leaked all over the floor, and you can see the chemical stains on the floor. Not good. So chemical hazards is definitely an issue on this map, and for that reason, it's getting a 60 out of 100. Okay, we are going to move on to our final medium tier risk of the video, and it is going to be building stability. Now, the buildings don't look terrible, don't get me wrong, but there are some slight issues, like the top of this roof missing, or how all these walls have crumbled. You know, that is from up here. That's not good. You also got buildings on fire, which are obviously breaking apart. Got roofs falling apart here again. And then, of course, inside buildings like this, you got big holes that you can just walk through. And obviously, look at the state of the motel. It doesn't look like it's in the best of conditions anymore. So whilst not massive, I do still have to put it in as a risk, and it is going to get an overall rating of 80 out of 100. But with that said and done, we can move on to our high tier risks now. And the first one I'm going to mention is explosions. We mentioned the cars being able to explode earlier, you know, just really easily, just blowing up like that. But we've also got to take into consideration things like these trucks that are on fire. These could explode because they're full of gasoline. And like I said, all these cars are a risk of explosions as well. All of these could damage you, you know, and blow you up to pieces. And with there being so many cars and opportunities to blow up in your face on the map, I am going to have to give it a 10 out of 100. And now we move on to our second high tier risk of the video, and it's actually impaling. Now, if you look at these fences at the graveyard, they all have quite sharp spikes on the top. All I'm saying is I wouldn't want to accidentally jump on one of these, because look how sharp those are. That would definitely hurt. I know for sure I would try jumping over one of these. And whilst it is mainly on the top section of the map here for these spikes, they are still a risk, you know. And because they're a high tier risk, I am going to have to give them a 30 out of 100. Okay, now we are moving on to the miscellaneous tier category. And we've got a fair few for this map. The first one actually being the ether storm clouds. Yes, these little guys here. Now, we've seen people use the LTG to spawn high-value targets out of this, which is a risk in its own. But these things are leaking out lightning bolts, which I could class as electricity, but I'm going to specify them to those ether clouds. Now, while that could be dangerous, there are only 2 of them on the map, and they are quite contained for now. So I am going to give them a 60 out of 100. Next one I'm going to talk about is actually this good old church here. The one thing that looks stable on this map. And that is, of course, until you go in it. And you end up in the dark ether. Now, we know what the dark ether can do to you. And obviously, whilst this is contained, we know that our friend Panos is sitting up here, trapped in the dark ether. And I'm only assuming he was actually working on something around here before he got trapped. So I'd say there's a pretty high risk that we could get trapped in here as well. And obviously, after spending too much time in here, we go a bit crazy and a bit delulu. So I would say the dark ether church is a risk. But because it is only the church, I am going to give it a 50 out of 100. Moving on to the next one is actually these little, I want to say they're container units. I'm not really sure what they're called, but this little thing here. Now, when you look at it, it kind of looks spooky anyway, because it's got that glowing like dark like aura around it, which doesn't look safe, you know? I don't think there's many people that would look at that and go, yeah, that's safe. But what's actually worse is when you start going near it, it starts taking away your health. So it is obviously quite dangerous. Now, once again, it is only that single one there, so it's not going to get a massively high score, but it is still going to get a 50 out of 100. Now, we've nearly cleared all of our risks. Don't worry, we're nearly there. We've got 2 left. And this next one actually relates to the ziplines on the map. Now, ziplines can be safe if used correctly, but watch me right now. I just connect a little zipline thing and I'm off. I've got no safety harness. I've got nothing to check me in. I've literally just got a zipline handle and I'm holding on to that, which for that little small one there, probably not an issue. I can hold on for that long. But are you really expecting me to hold on to this one the whole way across without falling down? Look how far this journey is. And I'm just holding on with one hand, not even 2. You're telling me that I'm going to go this whole way and not fall down, holding my body weight with one hand? That is a really high drop. That could really hurt if I fell down. So the ziplines are definitely a risk, and they're actually going to get a 30 out of 100. Now we can move on to our final miscellaneous tier of the day. And it's actually these dark ether traps that Project Janus have left around the map. Now, when these are activated, look what it does. And look what it does to me. Whilst it doesn't hurt while I'm moving, it does hurt when I'm standing still. And if I get stuck in one of these, it's going to be no bueno. So they are definitely quite dangerous, especially when they spawn multiple around. So they are going to get a 30 out of 100. Okay, that is all the risks that we've identified. Now we can go on to the safety checks on the map. Now, I noticed going through here, I saw a sign, a fire sign. And for the first time, I actually saw a fire extinguisher on the map as well. So this might be the first time we've got some fire safety, which is awesome. But there's a downside. That is the only fire extinguisher on the whole map that I could find anyway. Yeah, so while that is a safety feature, I can't give it a high score for one single fire extinguisher. And to be honest, I'm being generous giving it a 0.5 for fire safety. Now, I did identify another safety feature, and it actually related to the fire extinguisher when I mentioned there, you had the fire safety sign identifying that, you know, it's there. On top of that, when you come into the bowling alley, there's actually some wet floor signs, which are more safety signs. And on this back window over here in the bowling alley, you actually have a high voltage danger sign for the electricity. So safety signs is better than fire safety, but still not great. So it is only going to get a 2.5. And that is all of the safety features of Liberty Falls. So to recap on everything, we have tripping hazards with a rating of 70, hygiene with a rating of 60, shrapnel with a rating of 80, falling with a rating of 40, high-grade burns with a rating of 50, vehicles with a rating of 40, chemical hazards with a rating of 60, building stability with a rating of 80, explosions with a rating of 100, impaling with a rating of 30, ether storm clouds with a rating of 60, the ether church with a rating of 50, container units with a rating of 50, the ziplines with a rating of 30, and the dark ether traps with a rating of 30. Now, when you put all of these together, you actually get a 49 out of 100 as a rating. But we do have to take into consideration that we did have over 10 risks on a map, which gives us a -5 score. But we do also have our safety features, which was the fire safety for 0.5 and the safety signs for a 2.5, which gives us a +3. So overall, when you add those scores together, Liberty Falls gets an overall rating of 47 out of 100. Considering the apocalypse just started here, not terrible, but could be better. So in relation to safety category, it actually goes at the at risk in between bus depot and farm. So it's in good company there, I guess. But that is all for today's video. If you have enjoyed this, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, because next up on Safety Check is, of course, Terminus. And I can't imagine that map's going to be safe either. Now, before we go, I want to say a massive thank you to the members of this channel. The extra support is always appreciated. Apart from that, I hope to see you all in the next video. And I will leave you on the final note of Safety Check, which is stay safe.